Now, Indian seafarers who have been killed in politics that has erupted. Now, in the latest, the LOP Lok Sabha, Rahul Gandhi has targeted Prime Minister Narendra Modi over 3 Indian seafarers who have been killed. Now, what is now triggered to be a political storm as far as these Indian casualties are concerned? Rahul Gandhi is now blaming the Prime Minister of being silent, saying that not a single word has been spoken by the Prime Minister. And this is the charge that is now coming in from the leader of opposition. As far as the seafarers and how they have been killed as far as in international waters are concerned, and this is something which has now been taken up on part of the opposition as saying that India meanwhile has launched a protest, but it is not strong enough, especially when it comes to demanding answers from the US side why the military strikes was carried out on civilian ships that was carrying Indian sailors. Now, this is the latest attack that is now coming from Rahul Gandhi, where the Indian seafarers, 3 of them who have been killed, around 24 of them were on board one ship. At least 3 of these vessels that have now come under attack in the last 4 days. And politics which is now erupted as Rahul Gandhi is targeting the Prime Minister over the sailor's death and the seafarer's death that has now triggered a political storm. Rahul Gandhi is now making the accusation that the Prime Minister has not spoken a single word on the Indian nationals dying in these cargo ships, these vessels there amidst when it comes to the entire area of the Gulf of Oman and the Strait of Hormuz that has now turned into a virtual battlefield. Let's connect with Sabyasachi on this. So Sabyasachi, this is something which Rahul Gandhi is now pointing when the G7 also happens. Prime Minister Narendra Modi must take up the issue and also break his silence on the Indians, 3 of the Indian sailors who have been killed as far as in these strikes are concerned.
The Congress leader and leader of opposition, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, has sharply criticized Prime Minister Narendra Modi for not publicly addressing the deaths of 3 Indian seafarers in this recent US military strikes on commercial vessels in the Gulf of Oman near the Strait of Hormuz. Now, in a post of social media X, Rahul Gandhi highlighted the loss of Indian lives in international water and questioned Prime Minister Narendra Modi's reluctance to speak out. Meanwhile, the government, also the Indian government, has responded through diplomatic channels. The Ministry of External Affairs have summoned the US and conveyed strong concerns and described the attack as deeply worrisome. And Union Minister Sarbananda Sonowal had called the losses tragic and emphasized heightened monitoring in the Strait of Hormuz and Gulf of Oman.
Absolutely, because he is now demanding answers there, but also coming in the days is the participation of the G7. So here is where Rahul Gandhi is now demanding answers, because as far as the government of India is concerned, Sabyasachi, it has now already launched a strong protest as far as also summoning of the US diplomat in this case.
Well, that's right. As far as the reaction of the Indian government is concerned, they have already summoned the US diplomat. But however, Rahul Gandhi had argued that these steps are insufficient without a clear and direct public statement from the Prime Minister himself. And he had suggested that Prime Minister Modi, a personal rapport with US President Donald Trump, had recently highlighted in public messages, should have made sure that stronger protection for Indian lives. And he clearly questioned why the government appeared muted in its responses.
All right. Well, that seems to be the update coming in as far as politics over this issue is concerned. Rahul Gandhi is demanding answers, saying that not enough is being done with regards of what India has been putting across as a protest. He believes that it is not enough and blaming the Prime Minister behind it, saying that the Prime Minister has not spoken anything about 3 Indian seafarers who have lost their lives amid rising Gulf tensions. Well, when we speak of the developments that has been taking place currently in West Asia, now the government of India, which has now, the diplomatic heat that continues over, what's been happening in West Asia, we are also looking at how India has now raised this issue. So, especially when it comes to Union Minister Sarbananda Sonowal, who's now reiterated that the government remains fully committed to the safety and security and the welfare of every Indian seafarer. And this is something that has now been brought about as far as MEA has now summoned the US diplomat Jason Meeks to lodge a protest against the attacks on the commercial vessels off the coast of Oman. Yet another vessel with 20 Indian crew board also came under attack. So in the last 4 days, 3 different attacks, Mayank, that we are looking at, and there have been Indian casualties.
To the extent that classification of these ships, while there was a briefing yesterday in that it was talked about that initial the first ship, when it was attacked, was classified as something which is under sanctions. But here we see again another ship, and which is a merchant vessel coming under the attack. And we see, but the best part was that amongst the 20 crew members, which are Indians, at least we haven't heard of any news of them getting injured. It is getting interesting because all 4 ships which we hear of now, since 8th of April, they all had a majority, a substantial number of Indians as part of the crew there. And the protest, in fact, yesterday when I was part of the briefing in which the spokesperson of MEA has categorically said, and he said that we have lodged a protest, strong protest, and we expect some kind of a compliance on that. Now what we see is actually another protest is supposed to be lodged, and the same envoy has been called in. Interestingly, we have to further see that if situations doesn't change, it is getting complicated further because Indians maybe not. It's a coincidence that all 4 ships had substantial number of presence of Indians in that case, and it becomes a sort of an issue between India and the US as the protests are being launched, Amita, now.
Absolutely, because this is something how diplomatic heat is also building up, but how complicated also just the situation begin because G7 Mayank is also coming up.
You have brought in a differently point in a different manner to the extent that it is going to complicate how things
No, because
will be
I'm
resolved.
asking this particular question because this is something Rahul Gandhi, being the leader of opposition, is now asking. He's demanding answers from the government of India, and he's now blaming the Prime Minister for not doing enough when it comes to lodging a protest.
Yes, that has to be seen, in fact. And what we see, there had been sources who are talking that these vessels, that they were under the sanction category, at least 2 of them, and one was under non-compliance category. So having said that, one point which was brought out in a briefing by the sources is that their automated identification systems were off, in which this is in particular to the ship in which we have our 3 Indians have lost life. So what we see is actually different kind of details are being brought out, but then it is affecting the bilateral. It is affecting bilateral relationships also. And when G7 is there are lots of other larger issues, which includes the kind of wars, the disturbance, tensions, all across the different continents which is going on, that had to be discussed. But herein we find that, in fact, the bilateral relationships in which US plays a very significant role, that is going to be a matter of worry or a matter of diplomatic maneuvers, Amita.
Absolutely, because this is something which needs to be handled, sensitively. 3 families who have lost their sons as far as these developments are concerned. Unfortunate events that have now broken out in West Asia, and this is virtually that has now turned into a conflict zone. But the 3 Indian seafarers who have been initially was reported to be missing have now been confirmed dead in one of the attacks. But what about the government on its part, Mayank, has been doing so that such an incident is not repeated? I believe there are certain steps that have been undertaken to provide safety, especially for Indian flagged vessels.
Specific points and some statistics. Specific points is that MOSPW, which is Ministry of Shipping, Ports, Port Shipping and Waterways, it has said that it is in touch with MEA. Now, why MEA? Because all the embassies in the area there in the Middle East or West Asia, they had been keeping a tab on all kind of movement in that area and of the people who are living that, because there are almost 10 lakh people, 1 million people from India who are residing into that area. So having said that, a sort of a coordination has started and messages have been sent that a proactive eye has to be kept, measures have to be taken. And if in any case some need is there, then there has to be a proactive step to be taken. And this is, I'm talking about the coordination between MOSPW, Ministry of Shipping, Ports and Waterways, and Ministry of External Affairs, which has been time
Yes.
and again briefing about the kind of things which are
So
happening
the MEA
there.
has now summoned the CAD, as far as of the United States, Jason Meeks, to lodge a protest against the attack on commercial vessels off the coast of Oman, and yet another vessel with 20 Indian crew members on board that came under attack. And this is the second time that the US mission has been summoned by the MEA. And this development also comes after 3 Indian seafarers who were initially reported to be missing have been confirmed dead in one of the attacks. Now let's talk what's happening in the Gulf region and what the government of India has been doing. It has now gone on high alert to safeguard Indian seafarers and maritime interests, with the Ministry of Port, Shipping and Waterways that is also closely monitoring the developments in and around the Strait of Hormuz and the Gulf of Oman, while coordinating with the MEA, the Indian Navy and the other stakeholders. Union Minister Sarbananda Sonowal has reiterated that the government remains fully committed when it comes to the safety, security and the welfare of every Indian seafarer. Now, with these developments that are now coming across, we also talk about the 3 men, unfortunately, who lost their lives. Patnala Suresh, he was a chief engineer from Andhra Pradesh. Shivanand Chaurasia, engineer fitter from Uttar Pradesh. And a young Aditya Sharma, a sailor from Himachal Pradesh. They all set sail for work, for responsibility and for the promise of returning home. Instead, their families received this bad news. Behind the headlines and the geopolitical fallout, 3 Indian lives that were cut short, and this is something that the families there now waiting for the handover of their mortal remains.
Particular attack happened on the ship Sede Bello. We lodged a strong protest with the American side. We called in the American CDA, and he was conveyed our deepest concerns on the ongoing incidents of attacks. These attacks came from the US Navy that is stationed there. The 3 ships that have been involved in the incidents are foreign flagged. 2 of them are Palau flagged, and the 3rd one, which came under attack today, is Guinea flagged. So that is, they are not Indian-owned ships. They are all foreign flagged ships.
Now, we also spoke to the family of one of those sailors there, Rajesh Sharma, who's a father of Aditya, who was struggling to come to terms of the death of his 23-year-old son. And this is what he had to say. It's a very difficult time for you and your family, sir. And looking at the circumstances, जिस तरह से हालात बनते हुए जा रहे हैं, unfortunately, we have lost 2 more of the seafarers who were along with Aditya.
Knowing that situation, that US Army has gone mad and they are hitting vessels with deadly armed ammunition, how did and under whose consent or pressure that this ship's captain take decision to move this ship towards Gulf through Strait of Hormuz, where double blockade has been from USA and Iran.
Right,
and why did we take this decision? And why did US Army use this weapon, missile, to hit the ship, cargo ship, which is a commercial ship? They are not taking any ammunition, or they are not a bar ship. That was a oil tanker. और गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया को भी इंस्ट्रक्शन देनी चाहिए ऑल शिपिंग कंपनीज को और जितने भी शिप्स इस रीजन में है कि विदाउट confirmation or consent, don't move their ship towards Strait of Hormuz.
Well, there are more families who are waiting for justice. Let's talk about